For our Global Village project, we chose a 16-year-old girl named Sophia Gouda. She practices the religion of Christianity and her denomination is Orthodox. She is ethnically Egyptian and is from Cairo, Egypt. They speak Arabic and have a life expectancy of 70 years old. Also, the annual income of this country is $5,680 US. She works at McDonald's as a cashier and has been there for 5 months. The best way to describe her personality is introverted. She hangs out with only a handful of her classmates, but is very close to her family. In her free time, she likes to read books, babysit her siblings, and play soccer with her friends. The first impactful revolution is conflict. The protests against the Egyptian government first occurred in Sophia's hometown of Cairo, so her and her family have been in the middle of the revolution from the beginning. Being so close to the constant conflict has shaped Sophia into the shy girl she is today. Revolution isn't the only conflict for Sophia, though. She's a Christian in a predominantly Muslim society. According to an article in Peace and Change called Conflict and Cooperation, it says that the two religions coexist, but the Islam influence on the political system has placed stress on the relations, which in turn has put the relationship of the religious groups into a fragile state. Global economic integration is important because in many Arab countries, the workforce is predominantly male. In the article Egyptian Women Workers and Entrepreneurs, it talks about how women are a powerful force to a strong economy. Sophia works at McDonald's because she wants to find out what the working world is like, and because she doesn't want to rely on her parents for money anymore. Since Egypt is still trying to develop economically, accepting the integration of all women like Sophia into the workforce could give the economy the boost it needs. Resources are impactful because in many Arab countries, clean water has become a scarce resource. Sophia is greatly affected because her and her family have to be very mindful of any water that they drink. Drinking water from untested sources can lead to them obtaining a bacterial disease. In the article Long-Term Detection and Hydrochemistry of Groundwater Resources in Egypt, it discusses how water in Egypt is currently becoming the oil of the 21st century. This is because the recent agricultural expansion, urban development, and increased demand for limited water supplies. This forces Egypt to have to look at and use unconventional water resources. Water is not the only resource hard to come by. Food is starting to get harder to find every day for Sophia's family with the vastly growing population of Egypt. Population impacts Sophia because overpopulation is a huge problem today in Egypt. In an article by NPR, it discusses Egypt's surging population, stating that its population is growing by 1 million people every year. And now that it's just reached 90 million, it is weakening the people and the economy. Since Sophia and her family live in the most populated city in Egypt, they are surrounded by poverty and hunger. Even though their family does okay money-wise, it is still a struggle with the overflow of people where they live. Another problem that overpopulation puts on Sophia is the widespread conflict that is occurring around her, and it is hard to stay away from. This makes it difficult for Sophia to protect herself, because with so many people it is challenging to tell if someone is violent or not. Technology such as blogging and social media is a vital part of Sophia's life. Her blog gives her a chance to voice her protests against the government. There was an article written in 2014 called Egypt's Ongoing Uprising and the Role of Social Media. The article talked about how social media was the driving force for Egypt's political transformation. It showed the world the poor political and economic state Egypt was in. People like Sophia made this happen by voicing their opinions about what they felt was best for the country.
Conflicts. Conflicts in a nation can tear it apart, especially when it's a conflict like a civil matter. Poverty, corruption, and political repression lead to mass demonstrations breaking out in Egypt. This began the Egyptian Revolution. If Egypt were to experience more civil unrest with a new government similar to what they just faced, it can end up dividing the country and destroy it from the inside out. Global warming. An article called The Impact of Climate Change discusses that due to climate change, the glaciers will melt, increasing the water levels in flooding areas. This issue does not just involve the country Egypt. If changes aren't made to correct this, it can affect the entire planet as a whole, and all countries should strive to come up with a solution to global warming. Technological change in the future. In the article Information Technology for Development, it says technology is advancing much faster than we realize nowadays. There's always the next big thing. Technology has helped move a country forward in so many ways, and with constant advances, one can only assume for the same to come. Population change. In all things considered, Egypt's population They mention that Egypt's population continues to increase and there aren't enough jobs and food. Egypt has the highest population of all the Arab countries. With these obstacles, the country is faced with this population growth is taken away from their resources because they are all being either used or polluted with no solid source of waste in this country. If there's no solution in sight, the country will surely crumble. Globalizations. In the article, International Journal of Sustainable Built Environment discusses that there has been a great increase of people in Egypt that has led to unplanned development activities that's beginning to lead to urbanization. This, again, caused by a result in unorganized expansion, increased immigration, and a rapidly increasing population. In Egypt, urban growth has caused increased loss of agricultural land and water bodies. Urbanization is responsible for a variety of urban environmental issues like decreased air quality, increased runoff and subsequent flooding, increased local temperature, and deterioration of water quality.
The majority of people in Egypt are Muslim. The Islamic religion has shaped the country as a whole. In 1952, the Muslim Brotherhood took down the monarchy, freeing the Egyptian people. The Islamic religion has Egypt on its road to socialism and is changing the country. Since Islam has such a deep history in Egypt, it's easy to see how Sophia Gouda, a teenage Christian girl, would experience some difficulty growing up in the Islamic world and trying to convert her friends to Christianity, especially since Christianity and Islam don't have the best track record with one another. A study was designed to assess the knowledge and respect to epilepsy among secondary school students in Suez City, Egypt. A 13-item questionnaire was given to 2,226 randomly selected students. All the students, epileptic or non-epileptic, knew or had heard about epilepsy. Only 7.1% of the epileptic students and 8.5% of the non-epileptic students thought that epilepsy was a brain disease. Out of the 2,198 non-epileptic students, 28.4% thought that people with epilepsy should not marry, and 92% of them refused to marry any people with epilepsy. The students felt that people with epilepsy are unfairly stigmatized and are different from others. The secondary schools in Egypt have a very vague knowledge about epilepsy, causing many misconceptions and negative attitudes from students who are misinformed. With the population of Egypt continuing to grow, it is hurting this poor country's economy. There are not enough jobs and food to go around. This is causing hunger and poverty throughout the country. More than 26% of the country lives below the poverty line. In 2014, a study showed that in Egypt, each woman, on average, has 3.5 children apiece. The population of Egypt is growing 1 million people every year. This country has the highest population out of any other Arab country. Also, all of this population growth is taken away from their resources because they're either all being used or they're being polluted with no solid source of waste in this country. In Egypt, land use and land cover change due to it being one of the main driving forces of global environmental change. Also in Egypt, there's an unprecedented population growth that has forced some unplanned developmental activities that's beginning to lead to urbanization. As a result, there have been serious implications to the resource base for the region. The urbanization has taken place in radial directions around the most established cities and highways. This is a result of unorganized expansion, increased immigration, and a rapidly increasing population. Urban growth has brought serious losses of agricultural land and water bodies. Urban growth is also responsible for a variety of urban environmental issues like decreased air quality, increased runoff and subsequent flooding, increased local temperature, and deterioration of water quality. In the next 100 years, technological advances will help give life to Egypt's real estate world, and with the new technological change, it'll give way to new developments and fuel innovation. All of this will be influenced by the advances in technology over the next 100 years, and Sophia will be right in the middle of this change in Egypt.